I mean, look at the demand for solar panels.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 96 million ounces last year went into silver panels. So, you're talking about adding another 100 million ounces for solar panels in the next. You're talking about more than 100 million ounces for electric vehicles in the. Where's that metal going to come from? So by year end, I am actually expecting $26 silver and $1,900 gold. It doesn't sound like a big stretch from here, but there's only 6 weeks left in the year. And that sets a really good trend, I think, for going into 2022. My expectations next year are to challenge the recent highs on the metals, so 2,100 gold, $30 silver. That would be in the next 12 to 18 months. And if you look out 3 to 5 years, now I think that's probably the end of this bull cycle. Hard to say, obviously, when you're forecasting so far in the future. But all of the key drivers for the top of a bull market in the precious metals are already in place. We already have a shortfall of new mine supply in both metals. We already have all-time record global sovereign debts and deficits. We already have investors finally tiptoeing back into the market, recognizing that gold and silver are historic stores of value. So all of these ingredients, they're already there, and we just need to be patient, and they'll play themselves out. Silver, amongst all the metals, is primarily a byproduct of base metal mines. So it's 2/3 of all new mined silver doesn't come from silver mines. It comes from copper mines and lead zinc mines, gold mines. And since we've just come through a 7-year bear market for all of those metals, and now they're just moving forward in the last couple of years, we're very early in the bull market for all of these metals. And so there will be a resumption of byproduct silver production as new copper, lead, zinc, and gold mines come to production. But there's a lag time, and the lag time is measured in years, not months. So we're still probably a couple of years away from the bottom. Well, maybe the spike down during COVID was the bottom, and we'll just flatline here for a year or two. And then you'll see the silver supply starting to rise again as we get further into this bull cycle. So that's the most reasonable expectation. However, what about demand? I mean, there's nothing to dampen demand here. We've had the COVID rebound. We've got long-term forecasts for all the industrial uses of silver that would blow most other metals away. I mean, look at the demand for solar panels.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 96 million ounces last year went into silver panels, the biggest and fastest growing single driver on industrial demand. And if you believe any of the 2030 forecasts, the 96 million ounces has to double by 20 for solar panels alone. I just got back from Nevada last night, and anywhere you drive in Nevada, you pass these solar fields. They're sprouting up like incredible, like chicken farms all over the place,
like weeds.
Like weeds. Now, that's a really disruptive technology, has been for the price of silver in recent years. You've got the EV and hybrid forecasts up here, and it's a multiple on solar power. We only used about 60 million ounces for automotive uses last year. And by the way, the vast majority of that was traditional internal combustion vehicles. Why? Because they're digital.
Yeah.
Every digital circuit uses chips, and every chip has electronic contacts.
Yeah.
And guess what you use on the contacts?
Just a gram or two of that little silver paste, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So where are we going with this? Well, the conventional vehicle uses around an ounce of silver, plus or minus. The electric vehicle, being electric, uses about double. About 2 ounces of silver goes into an electric vehicle. Not for the battery, not for the wiring, but for all the electronic contacts with the digital circuitry.
Yeah.
If you believe any of the 10-year forecasts for the boom of EVs and hybrids to come, the 60 million ounces consumed last year has to triple by 2030, from 60 to 180. So, you're talking about adding another 100 million ounces for solar panels in the next. You're talking about more than 100 million ounces for electric vehicles in the where's that metal going to come from?
My suspicion is, and you tell me whether you think I'm right or not. I think all that silver that's currently used for the coins and bars that investors like, that's a very low margin business, the bullion dealers, 3%, 4% margins. And I think, the Apples of the world, the Teslas of the world who have higher margins are going to be able to outbid the private bullion market for that silver. And you're going to see a lot less coins and bars on the investor market as industrial demand consumes 100% of global mine supply. I don't know if you feel the same way or not. That's my theory.
So here's an interesting factoid. In the gold business, typically the price of gold is somewhat elastic. Investors view low price favorably and buy up more and more coins and bullion bars. And as the price of gold goes up, they buy less and less because it's more and more expensive. Mm-hmm. In the silver business, it's actually the opposite. People are afraid to come into the bottom of the market. And then, of course, when things start running, is when the masses barge in and buy their coins and bullion. It happened in the 70s, it happened again in the 90s, and it's going to happen again in the next 3 years. So, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that
that's how personalities work, or that's how
personalities work.
Fear of missing out, right? FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. So, but my thesis is that you've got this bedrock and very strong forecasted industrial growth for silver demand. You've got the return of the investor in the last 2 years alone to silver demand, and ultimately we've had falling supply. We're going to see flatline supply here for a couple of years. So all of that adds up to higher prices. And in terms of the long term, the rest of this cycle, I'll give you two metrics. One metric is that we made a quick trip to $49 silver in 2011. And certainly the charts are suggesting that we'll challenge that high again in this cycle. I think that would be a minimum target. And from the maximum target, well, the last time gold and silver were treated by investors as money and nothing but, as a true store of value against hyperinflation, that was the late 70s on the back of the oil crisis, peaking in early 1980 at around $800 gold and $50 silver, plus or minus.
Yeah, adjust that for inflation, what would the number be?
So, well, let's go there. By the way, the ratio of gold to silver at the peak is 16-1, and there's actually a rationale for that, because if you go back in time to when the British pound was the global reserve currency for the better part of 100 years in the 1800s into the early 1900s, gold and silver were fixed to the British pound at the ratio of 16-1. That was the ratio for currency back in the 1800s. I don't think it's a coincidence that when gold and silver returned as stores of value in the late 70s, that the ratio declined all the way down to 16-1. So where am I going with this? Well, it seems that when people treat gold and silver as nothing but stores of value, that seems to be where the ratio goes. And if we were to forecast, like the current ratio is 75, and if you do the inflated price of 1980 gold and silver today, you're talking, I don't know, 2,700 gold, and I'm afraid to even think about the silver number, up in the high hundreds.
Yeah.
So that would be the other metric.
We're not afraid, Brad.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.